Welcome to this panel discussion on Buy Now, Pay Later. The topic for today is the impact of Buy Now, Pay Later platforms on the retail industry. And I've got some great speakers here with me. There's Babajide from Hygia HMO, Cheslin Jacobs from Time Bank, Craig Newborn from Pay Just Now, Tiamo Matibela from Batu Shoes, and Damir Tukovic from Africart. Now, just to get things going, please introduce yourselves, tell us a bit about yourselves, and then give us your thoughts on the future of e-commerce and how the Buy Now, Pay Later offering will change the retail game. Craig, let's start with you.
Thank you. Thanks for the opportunity to speak. So my name is Craig Newborn. I lead the Buy Now, Pay Later team for Pay Just Now. We are South African grown Buy Now, Pay Later operator. We're South Africa's fastest growing Buy Now, Pay Later operator. And we have just passed a significant milestone of having seen over 1 billion rands worth of checkouts coming our way. As I said, built for South Africans, it's aligned to the South African consumer, and our product is available at over 2,500 physical and online locations where it can be used, and is growing at a significant rate. Thank you.
Thank you, Craig. And Damir, I believe you are a futurist. Just tell us a bit about what you do and your e-commerce platform.
Sure. Hi, hello everyone. Nice to have everybody online. As Abe said, I'm Damir Turkovic. I'm one of the co-founders of a B2B project called Africart. What we are trying to do is sort of become the Amazon or the Alibaba of Africa, where we want to supply goods into sub-Saharan Africa, specifically to the I don't like the term informal markets. I think the non-regulated markets, because that is the most exciting aspect of Africa. There's about, one of the things that will shock everybody. There are over 3 million, for example, SMEs in Tanzania. Out of those 3 million SMEs, 1.8 million are involved in sort of retail, small corner shops, moms and pubs. So that is my day job currently. We're busy raising some funds, so always challenging. And then I'm also a futurist. I did my studies at Stellenbosch Business School, and I've recently, started engaging in that sphere. Thank you.
Thank you, Damir. And let's go to Cheslin from Time Bank.
Thanks, Abe. Good afternoon, everybody. Again, thanks for the opportunity. So, Cheslin Jacobs from Time Bank. I'm the executive responsible for sales and service at the organization, and have been there pretty much from day one. As Craig claims to be the fastest growing BNPL platform in the country, we are comfortably the fastest growing bank in the country, and a top 3 growth digital bank in the world, for that matter. So we've made great strides in the 3 years that we've been live. Over 4 million customers on board, and no end in sight just yet. So we're extremely excited to share our views on what we think that our BNPL plays, potentially both as a standalone, but also with coming from the center financial institution as well.
Thank you, Cheslin. And let's go to Tiamo from Batu Shoes.
Good afternoon. Thanks, Abe. As it has already been mentioned, my name is Tiamo Matibela. I am the head of retail at Batu, and Batu is a local sneaker brand, ranked number 10 as Africa's most loved sneaker brand, Retailer of the Year 2021, Best Store Design 2021, and we are, I think, a very quickly growing sneaker brand that's learning so much, with lots of partnerships that we're trying to build with some of the people that are actually our panelists that are here today, and we're very excited to form part of such discussions that contribute to the retail landscape.
Thank you. And Tiamo, are you wearing a pair of Batu shoes right now? Okay, don't answer. Don't answer.
Very,
All right.
very skirts today.
Okay, let's go to Babajide from
I left
Nigeria.
mine at home.
Babajide from
Hi,
Nigeria.
Abe. Hi, Abe. Hi, everyone. Thanks for the opportunity to be a part of this. I'm Jide, Babajide, Jide for short. I work with Hygia HMO, one of the biggest health insurance providers in Nigeria. In terms of size, I'd say we're about number 2 in terms of size and business portfolio size. So for us, the retail market is of key importance to us because we operate in a largely B2B space. So we are looking at ways by which we can explore the B2C to grow the business. And of course, BNPL being one of the vehicles for penetration into the retail space is of interest to us. So aside from being a panelist here, I'm also here to listen to everyone and see what I can tap from you guys and bring into the Nigerian market. Thanks.
Fantastic. Thank you. Thank you guys for
Yep.
your intro. So let's get into it. Buy now, pay later. Craig, what is it? How does it work? And is it different from other forms of credit?
So, Abe, I think maybe to give an example of buy now, pay later and how it works. Essentially, buy now, pay later allows a consumer to split their purchase into multiple payments, preferably that match their cash flow. So if we had to use an example of a pair of shoes at 1,200 Rand, in the case of Pay Just Now, we split those into 3 installments, 3 equal installments of 400 Rand, 400 Rand immediately at the time of the consumer, either at the counter or on the way on checkout, and then 400 Rand on the first of the next month, and then 400 Rand on the first of the month thereafter. So effectively spreading that purchase over and to match the consumer's cash flow. Typically, buy now, pay later operators don't charge any fees whatsoever to the consumer. It's typically a free service to the consumer. In other markets globally, there are fees applicable. But in the South African market, the majority of us do not charge any fees to the consumer.
Fantastic. But Craig, as you and I know, there is no free lunch here. So who pays the fees?
So how the model works is essentially the retailer pays a slightly larger merchant fee to be able to facilitate this type of transaction.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Tiamo, just tell us, how is Batu taking advantage of this buy now, pay later phenomenon?
From our side, we've really taken it as an opportunity to still give our consumers the chance to access our products, especially after everyone has taken such a huge financial risk post the restrictions. So with these credit platforms, our customers are still able to come in and actually still purchase their favorite product with us. We've also seen it as an opportunity to really get a better understanding of our consumers' creditworthiness, and how much they actually can spend now. And with that, we're able to build improved pricing strategies. We're able to kind of put the right price points, first of all, in the right locations. What kind of sneakers and ranges are we setting to our particular stores, just based on some of the insights that we're getting from this buy now, pay later systems. We're also building better relationships with our consumers. With all the hard restrictions, yes, e-commerce kind of grew and everyone moved onto online platforms. But the truth of the matter is we still have a lot of South African consumers that are struggling with data, with access to data, and even just from an educational perspective, most of our consumers don't really know how to navigate these online platforms. So building, I think, a merger between physical shopping and digital shopping is something that we've really leveraged on in our stores, because now our consumers come into the stores, they have an opportunity to be educated in terms of how they go through this online application process, which actually then assists our e-commerce platform, so that when they do purchase, our products away from our stores, they have a better understanding of how to navigate our online platform. So it's a huge learning curve for us, but it's lovely to see how it's transforming our consumers' experience.
Okay, thanks, Tiamo. And I have another question for you. What risks do you see with buy now, pay later platforms?
Can you say that again, please?
What risks do you see with buy now, pay later system?
We're very strong on customer service. We really put a lot of attention in terms of the service levels that we give out to our consumers. So if we partner with the incorrect service provider, then from a reputational risk perspective, that could be huge. Luckily, we've partnered with a really, really great service provider. And we then still do our, regular check-ins with our consumers just to find out, once they've left our store and once they've actually been approved on the credit systems, what is the holistic experience like? Is this something that they actually want to come back and still experience in our store? So reputational risk is something that we're very aware of. And it's the responsibility from our side and definitely our service provider to just make sure that the consumer still comes back to purchase our product and still use the credit application process.
Fantastic, thank you. And let's go to Cheslin. Cheslin, we've seen reports about Time Bank partnering with buy now, pay later platforms like Adumo and others. Why did your bank decide to get into this buy now, pay later space?
Yeah, so I mean, if one looks back on the history of Time Bank, and a big kind of reason behind the growth we've experienced is the partnerships we've established. So obviously in our core business, we've got the distribution partnership with Pick n Pay Boxer, and that obviously gives us national presence overnight. As Craig will willingly share, I think that the big success to any buy now, pay later platform is the availability of merchants, and not just numbers of merchants that consumers actually want to buy at. It's pointless having a kitty of merchants selling things nobody really wants, So and if you look at the product Chiamo and Batu sells, it's massively in demand. So from a merchant partnership perspective, spot on. So that's essentially what a partnership like Adumo brings us. It brings us a fleet of merchants. We've done multiple such partnerships though. So we've also done a partnership with PayFast. We've also done more recently a partnership with TFG. And if one just goes back to what Chiamo said, is that obviously in South Africa, e-commerce is still a fraction of the total retail spend in the country, whereas most retail spend is still done in physical environments. And we think that the partnership with TFG, with all their multiple brands and physical footprint across the country, should set us apart from a buy now, pay later perspective, because consumers then get that tangible experience of what this is, what it can be, how it works. They've got a human interaction at point of purchase, and very few things can replace that in a market like South Africa at this point in time.
Okay, yes, thank you, Cheslin. And Jide, I just have a question for you regarding buy now, pay later in Nigeria specifically. Do you have any examples of basically how this platform or how this system is being used in Nigeria?
So there are quite a number of providers offering this service in Nigeria, but the focus has been mainly around purchase of electronics, mobile phones, fashion items, and there are quite a number. I use one of them myself. It's called CD Care. It's an app, and the consumer has the option of determining how long you want to spread the payments for. So unlike where Craig said you have 3 installments, you can choose to spread between 2 to 8 installments. However, you do not get the item until you've covered 50% of the cost. So that's one option for CD Care. The banks are also trying to get in on the game. One of the banks has a platform where account holders can also purchase items on loan. It's a loan, basically. They use your credit history and your account history to determine how much you can access in terms of purchasing these items. So it's something that is catching on. Again, part of the drawbacks in my environment is that a large proportion of our people are still unbanked, and then credit records are almost inaccessible. So you have to it sort of limits the number of options you have in terms of being able to offer this. But more vendors are coming in, and I think the market is ripe. And from Hygea's perspective, we are trying to see partnerships we can go into to have people buy our plans, our insurance plans, and then pay in installments. That's one of the key focuses for us for Q1 2022, actually. So I'm working on a few discussions right now to see how we can get that started.
Thank you, Jide. Craig, please just describe your typical user. Is it millennials, older people, or low-income earners? Who's the typical buy now, pay later user?
So the interesting part there is that there's definitely two profiles, right? There's people who are looking for the utility and looking for it to be a cash flow tool, where they are trying to split the purchase to align with their cash flow. In our particular case, we are targeting South Africans who are salaried consumers, right? So we align with their cash flow like that. And then the second part of it is more a convenience purchase, right, or convenience, because once you have the facility open, in our particular case, it becomes a one-click checkout. So from a consumer profile perspective, your average age is between 25 and 32. It's typically a woman who is making use of the service and is typically providing either purchasing lifestyle or fashion-orientated goods, but also at a very wide spectrum. So there's definitely utility users, people who are using it for a cash flow smoothing opportunity, and then there are people who are using it from a convenience opportunity. So income-wise, you've got people who are earning, from 15,000 Rand a month all the way through to people who are using it and who have net incomes of over 100,000 Rand a month. So the band is quite wide. And I mean, to give you an example, purchasing power that we have available to our consumers at this point in time exceeds over 500 million Rand in terms of available balances that our consumers can use. So it's a massive opportunity for retailers. Thank you,
Craig. Cheslin, are you seeing the same trends?
Absolutely, and I wanted to add, Aben, it's always, in essence, BNPL is still pretty much in its infancy in South Africa, right? So there's been a couple of providers around for a few years, but in terms of adoption, still pretty much in its infancy. If one looks at how big the actual retail opportunity is in terms of how much money gets spent. So we've seen very similar kind of consumer behavior as Craig is seeing at Pages now. But what I do foresee happening is that fundamentally changing over time. And I think why that will change over time is purely based on the societal construct in South Africa. I fit that definition that Craig said as the typical user, but I also act as an educator to my parents, to my uncles, to my aunties, to my brothers, to my sisters. But they wouldn't match that definition over time, but they'll surely become BNPL users over time. In the same way that I might be a Batu sneaker owner, and my family not, but over time they might be because they see an ad, and suddenly your typical consumer is very, very different to how you started. And I think that becomes, what you start to see now more and more is partnerships between financial institutions, between retailers, between aggregators, and the combination of those expertise and skill will constantly make access to products such as these much, much wider for all consumers to consume. And I think that's where the real power in something like BNPL is. It creates an opportunity for consumers to manage cash more than anything else, but also allows them to call it convenient or emergency purchase in a specific time of need, but then kind of releases that pressure almost instantaneously. And so you get those typical users, but then you also kind of get very typical purchases, right? BNPL will become, I think, that again, the tender type of choice for, call it grudge purchases, right? Everybody loves driving their cars, but everybody hates replacing their tires, for example. You never ever plan for it, and when you got there, it's one massive cash outlay. BNPL makes perfect sense for a purchase of that nature, for example. And I think more and more of these kind of use cases and scenarios will present itself that will make the job so much easier for BNPL providers, because consumers will then start organically understanding exactly the value a tender type of destination provides.
Okay, thank you very much.
Can I follow on that? Sorry, there's just the other thing that we're also noticing is that every single one of us, there is a price point where you do need to split things, right? For some of us, that might be a pair of shoes, and for other people, it might be a bicycle, or a surfboard, or a set of tires. It's just that you often find that you get to a point where it's an unplanned expense. I mean, a bicycle is not an unplanned expense, but I'm using an example. Or a horse saddle, right? A beautiful leather horse saddle is a requirement. But every single one of us has that point where it makes sense to split, especially if it's free. So from a consumer perspective, why not keep that money in your bank account, see the goods, or walk out the store with them, having paid, in our particular case, a third. Have a look at the goods, fit the goods, make sure you're happy with the goods. If they're delivered by a courier, etc., make sure you're happy. Not happy, you return. You've only outlaid a third, which gets refunded in full to you. It makes complete sense to the consumer.
Thank you very much. We've almost run out of time, so in closing, I'd like to get your thoughts on the future of e-commerce and the future of payments as it relates to e-commerce in the retail industry. Let's start with you, Chesley.
Yeah, again, so I think South Africa is a very unique market in this sense. We are a lot slower to adopt call it new payment types. I think we get very used to what we perceive as normal. But again, I think with the emergence of players like ourselves, like Pages now, and a couple others in the market, they become a lot more prominent, and suddenly we'll start to see a new normal. And I think what we start to see is an acceleration of consumers seeking value, right? And something like buy now, pay later provides immense value to a consumer in both cash flow and again access to the product. So I think as you start seeing more of these kind of partnerships between financial institutions, between merchants, between aggregators, the availability of these types of services, what you'll start to see is a rapid increase in adoption. Again, I still think in South Africa, physical retail will be the dominant player initially. I think you have to establish dominance there, and I think that dominance will then spill over into online retail as well.
Thank you. Damir, your thoughts?
Sure, Abe. So I'm going to try and answer this question sort of in two parts. First part would to talk about South African sort of ecosystem, e-commerce ecosystem, and the second would be Africa, because there are slight nuances in two. I think it's quite apparent that everybody's on an e-commerce drive, both business to customer and business to business in South Africa. And we're probably at the forefront around Africa, besides maybe Morocco, Egypt, Tunisia, Nigeria here and there in terms of, availability of e-commerce services. We've got the infrastructure to be able to fulfill those orders. And eventually it will normalize itself and become a little bit more efficient. But what I think is going to happen that customers will ask for a much more immersive experience. You're going in a couple of years' time, you're going to see people trying to test a metaverse type of an environment. It's still early stages for us here, but they're already doing it overseas. When we talk about the rest of Africa, there's a slightly different trend. There was a big drive for B2C e-commerce, which started with Jumia in around 2011, 2012. So they were the guinea the guinea pigs of the companies that did this, and they did relatively well. And they captured that particular market as much as they could. But what was happening, there were two issues that were coming out. Issue of trust of somebody who's got a very small spending power to part way with their money and wait several days to receive their goods. So there was a lot of search for sort of financial services, such as the guys have been discussing on the chat here. So that's the number one driver. From personal experience, when we tested our platform, the feedback that we got is how much transparency do we get during this transaction, and this was us selling it to the businesses. And secondly, can we pay on delivery? So those are the challenges that need to be addressed, and sort of that is the trend. To paint how this environment's going to look like, I think it's a little bit, it will just be too difficult. But the problems that need to be solved is delivery of those particular goods into those markets, networking with those particular markets, and then offering a good tender type, whether it's mobile money, buy now, pay later, whatever it might be, but it sort of has to be immersed.
Thank you, Damir. And Craig, the final thoughts.
So from us, I'd like to split that into two parts. I think the first one is the e-commerce component, and I think what Tiama and her team and their brand are doing around let's call it omni-channel experience, is the right approach. You've got to have both sides of that coin, because you often get a consumer who comes into a store, wants to look at goods or looks at goods online in almost like a catalog kind of form, and then goes into the store, wants to feel it, touch it, those kind of things, and then be able to immersed in the same experience, both online and in store. So it's vital that both of those are supported, but definitely consumers are very much more aware of e-commerce and the digital experience. So I think significant growth in the e-commerce space. And then the second part is around, obviously, the buy now, pay later, and where do I see it going? South Africa is known as the Rainbow Nation, so it all starts with the rainbow. That's pages not, right?
Thank you, Craig. Yes, Jide, your thoughts on the future of e-commerce and payment platforms?
I'd say pretty much the same thing everyone has said. E-commerce is here to stay. Like Damir said, Jumia came and paved the way. I'm very familiar with the issues Jumia had, especially around trust. They had to introduce the pay on delivery model for people who want to see the goods before they part ways with it. But over time, adoption has grown, and now there are so many variations of the e-commerce website that Jumia is. And so it's definitely something that has come to stay. And coming from my personal perspective, as a health insurance seller, we have a lot of interaction online now. All health insurance providers are now enabling their websites to have some sort of e-commerce capability. So you can actually come to my website now and purchase a plan, enroll, and without having to talk to an actual human being. And so it's a choice that we don't have a choice. We just have to roll with it. Then for the BNPL model, it's also has been said, like has been said, for the ease of the consumer, from a financial planning perspective, from a cash flow perspective, I'd rather split payments if I can get the item right now at no extra cost, so that I can spend the extra money on other things, especially in Nigeria, where majority of the people actually live from salary to salary. So I have too many things competing for the limited funds I have, right? So if I have an option to pay part payment for an item I need and receive the item, I don't even mind paying slightly more just to pay for the convenience of having the item when I need it without having to splurge the total amount. So the future is huge. It's bright. There's a lot of opportunities, and working out a few kinks here and there based on the environment. But I think BNPL is here to stay, and the sky is the limit.
Thank you, Jide. And last but definitely not least, Tiamo, please give us your closing comments on buy now, pay later and the future of e-commerce.
I think where e-commerce is concerned, there's still a lot of work to be done by us as brands to educate our consumers, but also to, as Demi mentioned, really build the right processes to kind of improve, the trust levels of our consumers. Giving off of personal information is still an issue. Trusting that my product is going to get delivered in time, in the perfect quality is still an issue. So there's a lot of work that still needs to be done by us as brands. And in the meanwhile, we will then really leverage on the physical shopping experience and use that as the opportunity for consumers to come in, touch and feel, get human interaction, and still be educated on these online platforms. And then, of course, where buy now, pay later offerings are concerned, our consumers definitely then have a huge and great opportunity to get access to the product and then split their money as far as they possibly can on other things, while they still walk away with a product that they love and that that may need in that moment. So we're very excited to kind of see how far we can kind of grow with this credit systems or applications.
Thank you, Tiamo. And we are at the end of this discussion. Thank you, Craig, Damir, Cheslin, Jide, Tiamo. Thank you very much for your time and your contribution. And to everyone watching, please stay on until the end of the conference. And thank you, everyone. Have a good day further.
Thank you.
Cheers. Thanks,
Cheers, guys. Thank you.
Cheers,
Thank you
guys.
there to Abe, basically moderating that discussion on the impact